National Insurance Clearinghouse, the marketing arm of Brokers Alliance, presents a Bravo video event, the Business Insurance Zone, dedicated to financial professionals who use insurance in their practice.
And on today's show, Basic Estate Planning with attorney Lou Shuntage.
And now the host of the Business Insurance Zone, the whiz of the biz, insurance columnist Steve Savant.
Well, welcome everyone to the Business Insurance Zone. I am Steve Savant, your host, and we're broadcasting live to a nationwide audience of financial advisors right here out of Fountain Hills, Arizona, home of America's Fountain, which I notice is playing in the background right now. And of course, with me today, Lincoln Benefits attorney at large. How did they actually? You're in their advanced team too, is that right?
Well, I am the advanced team.
You are the advanced team. Wow, the whole team is you?
Yes.
Wow. Lou Shuntage. Wow, I never met a guy that's the team. That kind of a plurality individual. Lou, welcome to the show. And I got to say, Lou, you've been with us all week. How you surviving?
Excellent.
Most fiduciaries by now want out of that chair like you cannot believe. So Lou survived. Good for you, Lou. All this week, if you've missed anything we're talking about, honestly, you need to watch. We might summarize a few things today, but I actually want you to go out, catch Monday's show at the front end, because we talked about a lot of docs that you should have, your clients should have. This is just basic repertoire when you're talking about estate planning. You need to have these things in your inventory, and we have all those things that I discussed all week. We'll give it to you absolutely free. Just call us or write us on the email. We'll give it to you. Now, before we get going, I want to talk about a little bit of history here. In the early 90s, we got into second to die in estate planning big time, and I mean big time. We were running with the IMOs that I were involved with, that I played with, we were running 60 to 70 estate cases placed that we were actually participating in, besides the fact that we were using tons of second to die premium to play that game. However, we really didn't understand the actuarial science of how long the female side of the equation of estate planning, or in other words, mother in a married couple. We didn't realize she was going to live so long. So we actually made a mistake, in my view. We were so illiquid in our thinking because we were trying to defeat estate taxes in every way possible. And our heart was right. We were trying to just make sure that we just were paying the minimum amount of transfer tax, but we didn't expect mother to live so long. Now, Lou, when we talk about this is really, it sounds like, oh no, this is for income. This isn't for estate planning. But after going through what we went through in the 90s, I'm now awake and conscious to this issue. Generally, and we're looking even at, I just reviewed this a couple weeks ago again, the Society of Actuaries 2008 VBT tables. And yes, we're all living a lot longer now, but I still see men dying about a year or so either side of the actuarial table. We are the most predictable of genders, I have to say. But I'm too afraid after the 90s and going through the whole decade of the 2000s, there is really good chance that a lot of our baby boomers who are non-smokers, who especially are eating, like my wife, who eats perfect, salads and always eating right. These gals are going to see late 90s, early 100s, and at the nursing home that I go to every once in a while here in Phoenix, at the time that the 2000 clock turned over, we had 3 tri-centurions at that place, and now we have a huge inventory of gals in their 90s. I noticed the ratio between men and women at that facility is 9-to-1 ladies, which, by the way, gives a whole new meaning to the Dan and Dean song, 2 girls for every boy. I mean, wow, 9-to-1. Now, why do I bring this up? Because we've learned our lesson, and while we're doing estate planning, we want to make sure that when dad leaves, because the odds are that we're going down before mother, we want to make sure that we give enough income for her to live on. Not the transfer issue, but to live on. And now this has become, this is kind of a strange for me. That should be, I always think of that in the retirement model. But really, this now has to be in estate planning, because I have to make sure, I have to anticipate mom living. And if she's a baby boomer now, she could see 100. This is not outside the 9 dots anymore.
Sure.
This is conventional planning. Talk a little bit about it, and especially, here's our real pressure point. All right, mom's going to live longer. Okay, we buy that, Steve, and I don't think anybody's going to dispute that. Our problem is the interest rates are so low and the rates of return are so low. What kind of money am I going to need to play?
Well, that's a big factor. Steve, you may recall our first broadcast, I said that in the area of estate planning, we do nothing just to do taxes. Rather, we do what we should do, what we have to do for ourselves and our family, and then with proper planning, we do it at the lowest tax cost possible. The problem, I think, too much is the tail wags the dog. People and their professional advisors get so carried away with saving taxes that individuals give so much away during the course of their life, trying to reduce the state tax exposure, that they paint themselves in a corner. And I've seen this time and again, okay? So that is, as you're pointing out, something to be concerned about, that you have a situation where you've got too much asset given away and too little now in position to take care of mom. Compounded by the fact that this is not going on in a vacuum. Any planning we do, we must do in the context of the world around us, and right now the world is in recession, okay? So think about the fact that whatever assets people have held on to, okay, not given away, but held on to, their net worth has dropped because of the recession. The usual thing we do planning for people's financial future, we look at what you've got, we look at what they're going to need, and make up the difference in life insurance. Well, if what you got is down, okay, that means that more has to be put away to provide for the individual, in this case, the mom. Add to that the fact that interest rates are like, what, 2-3%?
Well, the 5-year rate, as we're broadcasting this show, remember, I don't know what it'll be next week, but right now, our best 5-year rate out on the street is 3.6.
There we go.
That's our best rate.
So take a lower normal, let's say a 3%.
Right.
If you want to leave mom $2,500 a month for 10 years, which is only $40,000 a year, right? You got to put away in excess of $207,000 at 3% to generate that. If you want to take care of mom for 20 years and to go into the 90s and up to 100, okay, then to give her that same $2,500 a month for 20 years, you got to put away over $360,000. And I don't think these interest rates are going to change anytime soon.
No, not right now.
So we really need to think about, life insurance as a vehicle to be put in place to provide these kinds
So
of
what we're really
benefits.
saying is on the first death,
That's right.
the male, but more than likely,
Right.
the male will die first. His funding, his death benefit now will fund mother's lifestyle,
That's
her
right.
her whatever expenses and so forth all the
Right.
way out. Now I've noticed that we're coming to this whole, this is a whole full circle. We weren't thinking about first to die forever. And now we're thinking about it again because of this fiasco in the 90s, where, as you so rightly said, we painted it, our heart was right. We wanted to defeat estate taxes in every way possible. But we then shorted ourselves on liquidity for mom, who we didn't believe was going to live past the 1980 CSO numbers. Right. And now, those 2001, well, actually, now that I've read the 2008 VBT tables from the Society of Actuaries, I'm looking at numbers that are just unbelievable. And think about this. The Guinness Book of World Records, that gal 5 years ago, whatever it was, she died at, 121, I think it was way out there. And there are 15 gals in their 100 and teens, right? Yeah. That's phenomenal numbers. When you think about it, and there's whole sections of the world. I think they were talking about Georgia has extraordinary longevity. That little island in Japan, extraordinary. So we're now starting to wake up to this. Wow, our baby boomer gals are doing what? Eating great, exercising. They're living longer. We have to figure out a way on the first death planning now. So we're this is talking about first circle. I can't believe we're talking about this. This is like 1990 all over again. So now we're talking about it single case, by the way, now not second to die. That's for the estate. But I'm thinking there are several carriers, especially if you say, well, gee, Steve, I buy what you're saying, but my geriatric clients are so old. But let me tell you, repricing at the GUL market, the Guaranteed Universal Life market right now, you'd be shocked at these numbers and how they play out, guaranteed. And remember, we actually have one carrier, shock, I don't know if you both know about this, Lou. Some carriers actually are going out to 120. There's a carrier out there that illustrates to 131 now. This is how far out we're thinking.
Sure.
So we have to do this. We have to segregate a section of money based on, as you said, probably 3%. You better start looking at that number as the big number and push that aside and say, that's the number, and I have to take care of my surviving spouse.
Something else, Steve, you mentioned the planning done back in the 90s, 80s before that. Policies, universal life policies, are being illustrated at rates of up to 12% or more. They're not doing that now, okay?
No.
And sadly, people look upon life insurance as some kind of a static asset that they don't have to worry about and go back and look at, particularly if it's in a trust. I think that you have to look at life insurance on a regular basis from two perspectives. One is this policy performing as was originally illustrated? And secondly, is it going to produce a benefit adequate to meet current needs of the family? If either of those two is missing, you better be thinking about what can be
Well,
done.
let's just be honest here. I would say the vast majority of VUL and current assumption UL is not performing as it was illustrated, number one.
Right.
And I would say, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. When I look at the contracts that are out there today, and what we're trying to guarantee, that a lot of people go to indexing because of some of these issues. I'm not trying to say one product over another or one universal chassis over another. But I think a review is totally necessary. As you know, we do it here, and we do it for you in a way that's, remember, 65% of all our reviews generate usually a new contract. And when I'm reviewing these contracts, because of the interest rate and on current assumption UL alone, and of course the market being as bad as it was for VUL, those are real issues. And I want to be able to go and reprice in products. And we have carriers that are looking at this and trying to figure out, because there is some 1035 money involved in a lot of these cases. So we want to look at this as a possible whole new area to review. And we're talking about it in the context, again, of this week's show, all on basic estate planning.
Correct.
So I think it's a heads up. If you want to go ahead and send me, say, Steve, I'd like you to look at a lot of our cases that I've already ran into some, just call us 1-800-290-7226, extension 147, or you can just write us at the show, thebiz@brokersalliance.com. Now, yesterday when we were talking about, we don't know what 2013 is going to be like. But let me just say this. I tried to get into sophisticated, exotic planning. I'm just confessing, this is a confession of C. Savant right here.
Yeah.
I've confessed to you that I've tried to be exotic, high-end, advanced. The more advanced, the better. But many times when we walk in with family limited partnerships, tactical, strategic estate planning, our clients freeze because they know they're going to have to reissue the ownership issues. It's so complicated. You have simplified this and really distilled it down, and you call it, what do you call this thing again? Your palatable
Alternative. Yeah.
Now, when I think of palatable alternative, I'm thinking of that story you told me earlier. You're in with this couple, you're talking about their farm. Why don't you go ahead and take it from there? Their ranch, I think it was.
I think we have to understand is that we could sit here for the rest of the day and talk about these sophisticated estate planning techniques. And when I say this, I'm not talking about crazy schemes that are going to get your clients in trouble or embarrass yourself, right? They're legitimate estate planning opportunities. The problem is that they all require two things in common. Number one, you have to change how you own and manage your property. And number two, you have to be willing to make large gifts to the next generation. Example. I had a situation with a couple where we were going to suggest that they do a family partnership. And immediately the spouse pulled back because she said, this is going to cost me money to set this partnership up. Then it's going to change our banking, it's going to change our tax returns. I don't like this. You're going to make me change my life at 78 years of age.
And she walked out.
All right. The answer is what I call a palatable alternative is life insurance. I'm not going to ask you to change your life. Go to your lawyer for a modest sum. They can set up a revocable life insurance trust. And for more modest sums, annual gifts to the trust buys life insurance on you. Live your life as you always have. If you pass away, the insurance takes care of the tax.
Well, there it is, palatable. We're talking about a palatable insurance alternative. When we come back from the break, Lou and I are going to talk about why would I not want to do this simplistic way of doing it? And we'll talk about it right after the break when you hear from our sponsor, Brokers Alliance.
Whether you're a professional planner pursuing a strategic partner or an insurance distributor seeking a national alliance, your business just went into overdrive. Now enter the largest resource of insurance products and services with unparalleled access to a worldwide audience of consumers through the National Insurance Clearinghouse, the marketing arm of Brokers Alliance, who can take your company and launch it into the stratosphere of success. With countermeasures, the most comprehensive carrier intel in the industry, the MASH unit with field triage underwriting and the premium tolerance test, the life insurance financial evaluation, the most rigorous policy review, and Bravo high-definition broadcasting with online social media. Your search just ended.
Well, welcome back to the Business Insurance Zone. I'm your host, Steve Savant, insurance columnist, financial color commentator, and interviewer extraordinaire. Before moving forward with any of the strategies and tactics, especially all this week on estate planning, always check in with your CPA, your tax attorney, and if you're FINRA licensed, your broker-dealer compliance department. You can call me on any questions or quotes that you may have at 1-800-290-7226, extension 147, whether it's life insurance, annuities, DI, LTC, or group pension plans. Hey, it's not what I know, it's who I know, and that's why I have people like Lou Shuntage on our show, attorney from Lincoln Benefit Life, all this week. If you missed it, just walk out onto our www.brokersalliance.com golden homepage. You'll see on that left side or the right side the actual on-demand button. Just click it and look at all our shows Monday through Friday. We were talking, and I love this because everybody says, I don't like to get into estate planning, Steve, because of the very thing you said at the close. It's too exotic. It takes too much tax knowledge. Everything's so high-end. I have to get an MBA vocabulary just to play, right? And what did Lou come up with? His palatable alternative. Because I know we say all this, and a lot of clients go, whoa, 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 I'm not changing ownership on that. That's way too much. How much is that all going to cost me to set this up? The attorney fees alone on billable hours could be choke a horse. And if she's doing a ranch, she knows all about that. So I like the palatable alternative to doing something simplistic. Say, all right, forget all that. Let's take the money you were going to spend on the billable hours or anything else, all this reconfiguration, and let's keep it simple, and let's put an irrevocable life insurance trust up. I got to tell you, Lou, I think there's a lot of people out there that they do want to do the best thing for estate planning, but they're unwilling to unbundle and unwind ownership issues and beneficiaries and all this. It sounds like it's such a headache, and in your story that you gave in the last segment, this gal basically walked from the interview, because she says, hey, I don't want to know about it. And so I'm wondering that when we talk about estate planning from an advisory point of view, if you start seeing your client glaze over, that might mean no. Not that they don't understand, but they're saying no.
Don't want to do it. Don't want to change my life.
I do not want to do that. Well, I think that's a huge issue. And I want to talk about, when we were in the Monday show, because I want us to always do what we, practice what we preach. And we don't do it sometimes, so I got to say. We talked about 3 docs, and I want Lou to just do a quick review before we close out this last segment of the entire week. First thing you talked about was durable power of attorney.
Yes.
And we remember everything that Lou and I are talking about right now in the next 5 to 7 minutes is for your client, but we need to do this first.
Yes.
Lou.
Well, I think people have to realize, and I think I once saw statistics that showed as many as 60% of people can become disabled at some point in their lives. Well, what happens to your property if you're in that situation? Who's going to do the repairs in your home? Who's going to file your tax returns? Who's going to do so many things that become important? And the answer is that you can select an individual as your attorney, in fact, to do these things for you if you're in an incapacitated state.
And this could be a family member.
That's right. And we call it a durable power of attorney because regular powers of attorney cease if you become mentally incapacitated. A durable power of attorney goes on, and the person can do these things for you while you can't do it for yourself. Always pick a substitute. If that person can do it, then another person can.
So you have a contingent backup.
That's right. Right.
Okay, so it could be family. It could be a trust officer, maybe at a bank or whatever. By the way, a little heads up. Last segment I was just thinking about this as trust officer came out. We have a lot of trust officers that are managing, assets for clients, but they also have in their holdings life insurance policies. And you know what? I'm sure they know nothing about the due diligence on these contracts. We were talking about how some of these current assumption ULs. If you're a trust officer, and we have quite a little following of fiduciaries in the market, especially in the CPA community, if you're a fiduciary and they're looking to you as their financial quarterback, and you're saying, man, Steve, I didn't even know any of this. I don't know anything about life insurance. Remember, we can go ahead and review that for you. This is something that you may even want to use as a billable hour, especially in the summer when business kind of slows down. So just keep in mind of that. That's a huge issue that you may want to look at. If you're a trust officer, CPA, or a tax attorney, and you're not really wise to the issues of insurance, please feel free to call us 1-800-290-7226, and we do those reviews for you. Lou, we were talking about that second day, the medical advance directive. Now, I get the durable power of attorney. Right? I get that. I'm disabled. Now I have to make medical decisions when I don't have the mental capacity to make them for myself.
Right.
So I don't know if is this show like I'm telling my kids, hey, unplug dad? What am I saying in that?
Well, I think we have to look at that. There are 2 elements to this. One element is that for those people who are in a terminal state, they're not going to recover, or there are certain kinds of treatment they do not want. such as artificial nutrition hydration. That's the tube down your throat, keep you alive for years. Do you want them to give you painkillers that may hasten your death? Do you want them to do extraordinary medical procedures that are very expensive, sometimes uncomfortable, like organ transplants, whatever? So I think in what's typically called a living will, you say, these are things I don't want if I'm terminal. Then, of course, there are a whole lot of other decisions that have to be made for those who are not terminal, but they're ill, under treatment, and they can't make decisions for themselves. In that case, you can have someone else named as a healthcare proxy or a healthcare attorney, power of attorney, to make the decisions for you. And in some states, you can have both. Right? The important thing is to talk to your lawyer and just be aware of the fact that it's important that you lay out how you want to be treated, okay, if you become in a situation where you're mentally incapacitated to make decisions.
We have information on all this on durable power of attorney, your medical directive if you need to get that, doc. And then the third one, which everybody should have, and it's all over the internet, and you can get all kinds of samples on this, is a basic will.
Sure. And why is that? Well, if you don't have a will, then you forfeit the right to say where your probate estate goes. Notice I didn't say your entire estate, I said your probate estate. What's your probate estate? It's easy to say what it's not. Your probate estate does not include property which passes by a beneficial designation. Supreme example, life insurance or pension benefits, okay? Secondly, property which passes by operational law, such as where people own property jointly as what's called joint tenants with right of survivorship. In that circumstance, and it's often how people own their homes, husband and wives, one person dies, the other person automatically receives ownership of the full property, okay? Outside of that, pretty much, the rest of what's out there that people own will be a part of their probate estate. Again, if you don't write a will saying where that's to go, state law says where it goes, under what are called intestacy laws. So if you die without a will, you die intestate. And state law will say who gets your property. Typically, if you're married with children, it goes to the spouse and the kids, all right? If you don't have that, then to your parents, if not that, siblings. But again, you're forfeiting the right to say what you have built up all your life, where that's going to go. Now, that may not be that important on the first death with a husband and wife because much of what they own will be in joint names, okay? But after that first death, when the second person dies, if they haven't got a will, you're dealing with intestacy laws. Now, what's wrong with that? Well, people who don't really deserve to receive something in your view may get property. People who really need to be taken care of won't be taken care of because the law is not going to give them what you would have given them. Another example, had a couple from West Virginia that were killed in a car accident. They left about $300,000 of insurance. No will, no trust, no nothing, okay? An uncle by marriage stepped in the situation and got the court to name that person as the guardian of the children with power over their money. That person said to the agent who I knew, the first thing I'm going to do is buy a new house for us and I'm going to get a new pickup truck. They're going to be with us, the better we do, the better they'll do. By the time those kids grow up, that money's going to be gone. Now, sure, they can bring an action against the uncle. He might even go to jail. All right, what good's are going to do the kids? You need these kind of documents in place to make sure.
You're bringing up a huge one, the child care, which we didn't talk about all week. That's a whole nother issue on the will itself.
Right.
And that is a major league issue. I mean, that is a huge issue. And the economics of supporting the child, that's another issue at death. I mean, I have to think about that. So that I just want to bring up some of these things because these are great sales opportunities. Really, they are. These are normal docs that we should have as advisors. It's easier to sell what you own, and we all need to have these docs, and I have 2 or 3 of them, and I'm sure I'm going to have to add the third one now. Yeah. So I want to be able to go down that road. Now, when I'm talking about having a will, and I like that part which you said, I want to make sure you heard this, and I already know this, but I want to underscore it. Life insurance was not part of the probate, right? So that bypasses probate. Annuities the same?
Well, one exception, Steve. It's possible that a person's beneficiaries have passed away, and you'll oftentimes find in the contract that if there are no beneficiaries, they'll pay the person's estate. Now it's a part of the probate estate. Or if by mistake they name their estate as the beneficiary. So that's why, as we were saying before, it's so important that you actually sit down and look at that customer's insurance policies. Who's the real beneficiary? Who's the real owner? Sometimes you'll be surprised.
What I really like, and this is a movie, I'm not saying I'm recommending it, I just like the end of it. We're sitting in the office at the end of the Gran Torino Clint Eastwood. Do you remember this movie? And they're sitting at the end of the movie, and all of the Clint Eastwood's, I forgot his character's name, his children and grandchildren are all in there, and they're ready to get all these assets, including the Gran Torino, right? And if he doesn't make a directive, which apparently he did, he made a will, they're going to get none of this stuff, right? I mean, they're going to get it all. I'm sorry, they're going to get it all. And in the probate, he goes through that and he starts listing all the people are what they're going to get, and they're getting nothing. I mean, it's just, it's like, I mean, I feel bad for his family because I guess they didn't have a good relationship with their dad. But on the other hand, this is directing your assets from the grave. And I kind of, as morbid as that sounds, and I should have saved that for a Halloween show, but I just love that idea of being able to direct and state what I want to happen. This is America. One of our individual freedoms is to keep the state out of it. And I like the idea of having durable power of attorney. I like the idea of making medical directives as I see fit. How do I want to go on? And the issue of will. Practice what we preach and we adopt these docs. Again, we have a lot of the samples. We're happy to give it to you. And then we place that in front of our clients. I think these are huge opportunities to walk into our client on estate planning. And one other side note, Lou, before I let you go, I really want to emphasize, no matter what happens in 2013 with the new law, whatever it may or may not be, we still have state taxes to pay. And I have a document, or actually I have an article that I wrote. And that article actually frames why you need to look at state taxes and not worry about estate taxes so much, but state tax itself, because it's still expensive and punitive for somebody to have to pay. Well, listen, you can watch all our shows all this week in beautiful HD 1080p right on our website, www.brokersalliance.com. When you come on the homepage, just click on the on-demand section, Monday through Friday. Thanks, Lou, for being on our show. You remember, you can catch all our other stuff on Vimeo, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, and network. That's the buzz on the biz for today. You're listening to the Business Insurance Zone. Get in the zone.
This has been a Bravo video event of the National Insurance Clearinghouse, the marketing arm of Brokers Alliance, one of the largest distributors of insurance products and services to a nationwide network of insurance professionals. Need insurance guidance? Call Brokers Alliance. Business Insurance Zone, dedicated to financial professionals who use insurance in their practice.